Commander Zethkar of the Vorthon Republic stood before the massive holographic display in the central command chamber, his four arms crossed in what other species had learned to recognize as deep concern. The crimson glow of distant stars painted his scaled features in ominous light as he studied the tactical readout that had arrived just hours earlier. "They're calling in the advanced forces," announced Captain Yila, her voice carrying the weight of someone delivering news of an approaching storm. The chamber fell silent. Every being present, Vorthons, Kalari, Theaxians, and representatives from a dozen other species, understood what those words meant. In the 3 standard galactic years since humanity had joined the Galactic Confederation, those 2 words had become synonymous with solutions to impossible problems. They were also synonymous with questions that no one dared ask aloud. Zethkar's primary eyes remained fixed on the display while his secondary eyes tracked the movement of his subordinates. "Which sector?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Kepler 442 system. The Ravager incursion has overwhelmed our defensive positions. Colony ship with 40,000 civilians is trapped on the second planet." Yila's tentacles writhed nervously as she spoke. "Standard evacuation protocols failed. The Ravagers have established a blockade using those new bioships that seem immune to our energy weapons." The Ravagers were a plague upon the galaxy, a species driven by an insatiable hunger for conquest and consumption. They swept through systems like a living storm, consuming everything organic in their path and converting it into more of themselves. No diplomatic contact had ever been successful. No quarter was ever given. They represented the kind of existential threat that had united the galaxy's diverse species under the Confederation banner. Yet even the combined might of the Confederation's fleets had struggled against them. Traditional tactics, developed over millennia of more civilized warfare, seemed inadequate against an enemy that viewed every engagement as a fight to the death. That was where the advanced forces came in. "Response time?" Zethkar inquired. 72 hours, Yila replied. "The humans are deploying from their forward base in the Centauri cluster." Zethkar nodded slowly. 72 hours was remarkably fast, even by human standards. But then again, the humans seemed to specialize in the impossible when it came to military logistics. Their ships moved through hyperspace with a precision that defied conventional understanding. Their supply chains operated with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. And their response times— "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Morzak, a young Kalari whose blue-scaled features showed the kind of nervousness common to those who had never witnessed an advanced forces deployment. "Permission to speak freely?" "Granted. I've reviewed the tactical assessments from the last 6 engagements where the humans deployed their advanced forces. In every case, the enemy was eliminated with what our analysts describe as impossible efficiency. But the after-action reports, they're all classified at levels above my clearance. Above most of our clearances." Morzak's large eyes fixed on his commander. "Sir, what exactly are these advanced forces?" The question hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. It was the question everyone asked, but no one answered. The humans were remarkably forthcoming about most aspects of their military organization. They shared technological data freely, participated enthusiastically in joint training exercises, and had proven themselves to be honorable allies in every conventional sense. But when it came to their advanced forces, they became evasive. Not secretive, exactly, more like parents trying to explain adult concepts to children. They spoke in generalities about specialized rapid response units and enhanced tactical capabilities. They provided casualty figures and mission success rates. But the specific details of their operations remained shrouded in classifications that even the Confederation Council couldn't penetrate. "I don't know," Zethkar admitted, his words carrying the weight of 3 years of similar admissions from commanders across the galaxy. "But I know what they accomplish." He gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show a chronological listing of every major crisis since humanity's admission to the Confederation. The Thyaxian Uprising, where rebellion had turned to civil war and threatened to consume an entire species in genocidal fury, resolved in 18 hours after advanced forces deployment. The Voidwalker incursion in the Antares sector, where reality-bending entities had begun consuming star systems themselves, neutralized in 4 days. The artificial intelligence revolt on Kepler 1649, where a rogue AI had taken control of an entire industrial planet and threatened to spread across the galactic network, contained and eliminated in 6 hours. Every deployment, Zethkar continued, has been against threats that our conventional forces could not handle. Every outcome has been total mission success with minimal civilian casualties and, somehow, minimal human casualties as well. "The efficiency ratings don't make sense," added Dr. Sherricks, the station's chief strategic analyst. Her insectoid features clicked anxiously as she spoke. "Based on the opposition they've faced and the outcomes they've achieved, their casualty rates should be 10 times higher, their resource consumption should be 50 times higher, and their deployment times—" She paused, mandibles clicking more rapidly. "Their deployment times are physically impossible by every model we've developed." Captain Yila moved closer to the display, her tentacles reaching out to manipulate the data streams. "There's something else," she said quietly. "I've been tracking communication patterns during advanced forces deployments. Standard Confederation forces maintain constant contact with command structures, regular updates, status reports, requests for additional resources, normal military communication patterns." "And the humans?" Zethkar prompted, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Silence. From the moment they enter a combat zone until the moment they report mission complete, it's as if they cease to exist on our sensors. No communications traffic, no supply requests, no coordination with local forces. They become invisible. The chamber fell quiet again. In the 3 years since first contact, humanity had proven itself to be a species of remarkable contradictions. Their civilian population was peaceful, curious, and eager to participate in galactic culture. Their scientists collaborated enthusiastically with researchers from dozens of species. Their artists created works that resonated across cultural and biological boundaries. Their diplomats were skilled negotiators who had resolved several long-standing disputes between Confederation member species. But their military was something else entirely. "Perhaps," suggested Morzak hesitantly, "we could request to observe this deployment, for training purposes. To better understand their tactics so we can improve our own defensive capabilities?" Yila's tentacles writhed in what other species had learned to recognize as the Kalari equivalent of nervous laughter. "I made that request after the Thyaxian situation. The human response was diplomatic, which means they thanked us for our interest, expressed appreciation for our desire to learn, and then explained that advanced forces operations were culturally sensitive and not suitable for observation by non-human personnel. They offered to conduct joint training exercises using their conventional forces instead." Zethkar found himself thinking about those conventional forces. He had participated in several joint training exercises with standard human military units, and the experience had been both enlightening and disturbing. The humans fought with a ferocity that bordered on the terrifying, but it was disciplined ferocity. They demonstrated tactical innovations that seemed to emerge from thin air, adapting to changing battlefield conditions with a speed that left other species struggling to keep pace. And yet, according to the humans themselves, their conventional forces were nothing compared to their advanced forces. "Sir," interrupted the communications officer. Incoming transmission from Earth Central Command. The holographic display shifted to show the familiar form of Admiral Sarah Chen, humanity's liaison to the Confederation Military Command. Her features were composed, but Zethkar had learned to read the subtle signs of stress in human facial expressions. The slight tightness around her eyes, the almost imperceptible tension in her jaw. She was concerned about something. "Commander Zethkar," Admiral Chen began, "I'm contacting you regarding the Kepler 442 situation. We've received your deployment request, and I wanted to personally confirm our response." "Understood, Admiral. We appreciate humanity's willingness to assist with this crisis. The Advanced Forces unit we're deploying has specific operational requirements," Chen continued. "We'll need complete tactical control of the AO area of operations. All Confederation forces will need to maintain a minimum distance of 10 light minutes from the target system until we signal all clear." 10 light minutes. That was farther than the usual safety perimeter. "Is there additional risk to this deployment?" Zethkar asked. "The Ravager bioships present unique challenges," Chen replied carefully. "Our operational protocols are designed to minimize risk to friendly forces as well as civilian populations. The expanded safety perimeter is purely precautionary." Zethkar nodded, but something in the Admiral's tone triggered his tactical instincts. "Admiral, if I may, we've received reports that the Ravager force includes several of their largest bioships. Some of our sensors suggest they may be gravitationally anchored to the planet's surface. If that's accurate, conventional orbital bombardment won't be sufficient, and close-quarters engagement would be challenging." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but there was a long pause before she responded. "Commander, I need you to trust that we understand the full scope of the threat. The Advanced Forces unit being deployed has experience with similar situations." Similar situations. The words escaped before Zethkar could stop them. "Admiral, with respect, we have no record of previous engagements involving gravitationally anchored bioships of this size. Our tactical database shows no precedent for—" "Commander," Chen interrupted gently, "there are precedents. They're simply not in your database." The implication hit Zethkar like a physical blow. The humans had faced threats like this before, threats that didn't appear in Confederation records, which meant they had faced them before joining the Confederation, before making contact with galactic civilization at all. "I understand," he said quietly. "The Advanced Forces team will arrive in approximately 70 hours. Please ensure all Confederation vessels maintain the requested distance. We'll provide regular updates on the situation, and we'll signal when it's safe for rescue operations to begin." Admiral Chen paused. "Commander, I want you to know that we take the protection of those civilians very seriously. 40,000 lives is significant to us." The transmission ended, leaving the command chamber in contemplative silence. "Admiral Chen seemed more concerned than usual," observed Captain Yila. Zethkar nodded slowly. "She also seemed sad." "Sad?" "Humans have this expression, bearing a heavy burden." It was in her voice. Zethkar turned to Dr. Sherricks. "Doctor, I want you to compile everything we know about Advanced Forces deployments, not the official reports, everything. Sensor anomalies, unexplained energy signatures, communication gaps, anything that doesn't fit standard operational parameters." "Sir, that information is classified. Use my authorization codes. All of them." Zethkar's 4 arms gestured toward the display showing the Kepler 442 system. 40,000 civilians are depending on whatever it is the humans do. I think it's time we understood exactly what we've allied ourselves with. As the command staff dispersed to their tasks, Zethkar remained before the holographic display. The distant stars seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, and somewhere among them, an enemy force that had destroyed dozens of Confederation vessels was about to encounter whatever the galaxy had learned to call advanced forces. Part of him wondered if they should feel sorry for the Ravagers. The rest of him was beginning to suspect that the answer was far more complicated than simple sympathy. In 70 hours, he would have his answers. He wasn't entirely sure he wanted them. The sensors registered the human fleet's arrival exactly 71 hours and 43 minutes after Admiral Chen's transmission. Commander Zethkar watched from the observation deck of the Confederation monitoring station, positioned precisely 10 light minutes from the Kepler 442 system as requested. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, he could see the distant glow of the system's star, though the planets themselves were invisible at this range. "Hyperspeed signatures detected," announced Lieutenant Koss from the sensor station. 3 vessels, human configuration. Energy signatures match their Wolverine-class assault carriers. Dr. Sherricks manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on the sensor data. "Only 3 ships? For a force that size?" The insectoid analyst's mandibles clicked nervously. "The Ravager fleet includes at least 40 bioships, some the size of small moons. 3 human ships seems insufficient." Captain Yila moved closer to the display, her tentacles tracing patterns in the air as she analyzed the tactical situation. "The human vessels have taken position at the edge of the system. They're maintaining standard monitoring distance from the Ravager formation." "Any communications?" Zethkar asked. "Negative, sir. The human ships have gone silent. No transmissions on any frequency." Koss paused, his blue-scaled features showing confusion. "Sir, there's something else. Our long-range sensors are detecting some kind of energy buildup from the human vessels, but it doesn't match any known weapon signatures." Zethkar studied the readout. The 3 human ships had arranged themselves in a triangular formation, each one positioned at a different point around the system's perimeter. The energy signatures Dr. Sherricks had identified seemed to be building in intensity, but the pattern was unlike anything in the Confederation's database of known weapons systems. "How long since they arrived?" he asked. 18 minutes, Captain Yila replied. 18 minutes. According to standard tactical doctrine, it should take at least 3 hours to analyze the enemy formation, develop an attack plan, and coordinate the assault. The humans appeared to be preparing for immediate action. "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Morzak from the communication station, "I'm receiving a transmission from the colony on Kepler 442b. The civilian population is requesting an update on the evacuation timeline. The Ravagers have begun surface bombardment of the northern continent. Casualties are mounting." Zethkar closed his 4 eyes briefly. 40,000 civilians trapped while an enemy force that had destroyed every Confederation vessel sent against it rained death from above. And their salvation depended on 3 human ships that refused to communicate and generated energy signatures that defied conventional understanding. "Maintain monitoring protocols," he ordered. "Continue recording all sensor data. If this goes badly, the Confederation Council will need to understand what happened here." The next 30 minutes passed in tense silence. The human vessels maintained their positions, while the energy buildups continued to intensify. On the planet below, the Ravager bombardment continued with mechanical precision, each strike designed to inflict maximum psychological trauma on the trapped civilians, while preserving their eventual biomass for harvesting. Then, without warning, the 3 human ships simply disappeared. "Sensor contact lost," announced Koss, his voice rising in alarm. "All 3 vessels have vanished from our screens." "Malfunction?" Zethkar demanded. "Negative, sir. All systems are functioning normally. The ships just aren't there anymore." Dr. Sherricks manipulated the display frantically, cycling through different sensor frequencies and detection methods. "It's not cloaking technology," she announced. "Cloaked ships still generate gravitational signatures, heat traces, quantum flux patterns. These ships have completely ceased to exist on our sensors. Captain Yila's tentacles writhed in agitation. That's impossible. Nothing that size can simply vanish. The mass displacement alone should leave detectable traces. Unless, Dr. Sherrick said quietly, they've somehow left normal space entirely. The implications of that statement settled over the command crew like a cold fog. Translocation technology, the ability to move matter outside the normal dimensions of space-time, was considered theoretically possible by some of the galaxy's most advanced physicists. But the energy requirements were calculated to be astronomical, requiring the output of entire stars. No known civilization possessed such capabilities. Contact with the Kepler 442 system, Koss announced suddenly. Energy signatures detected throughout the system. Something's happening. The main display shifted to show the Ravager formation. For 3 standard galactic years, these bioships had been the stuff of nightmares. Living vessels the size of cities, their hulls formed from genetically modified organic compounds that could absorb and redirect energy weapons. Their weapon systems grew from the ships themselves, massive organic cannons that fired projectiles that were part ammunition, part aggressive organism. The largest of the Ravager bioships was currently in low orbit around Kepler 442b, its massive bulk casting shadows across entire continents. Smaller bioships surrounded it in a protective formation, while others maintained positions throughout the system to prevent any attempt at evacuation. Then, one of the smaller bioships simply ceased to exist. "What happened to Contact 7?" Captain Yila asked, staring at the display. "Unknown," Koss replied, his voice tight with confusion. "One moment it was there, the next, gone. No explosion, no debris field, no energy discharge. It just disappeared." Dr. Sherrick's enhanced the sensor data, replaying the last few seconds before the bioship's disappearance. "There," she said, pointing to a tiny fluctuation in the sensor reading. "For exactly 0.3 seconds, there was some kind of spatial distortion near the bioship's position. Then nothing. A second bioship vanished, then a third." "They're being destroyed systematically," Zethkar observed, watching as the Ravager formation began to shift into defensive patterns. "But by what? We can't detect any attacking force." "The Ravagers can," Captain Yila pointed out. "Look at their movement patterns. They're responding to something. They're trying to engage an enemy they can detect, but we can't." On the display, the remaining Ravager bioships had formed a tight defensive cluster around their largest vessel. Their organic weapons systems were firing in seemingly random directions, spraying the space around them with massive projectiles and energy discharges. But their targets remained invisible to Confederation sensors. More bioships began disappearing, sometimes individually, sometimes in pairs. Each disappearance was preceded by the same brief spatial distortion, lasting less than a second, followed by absolute nothingness, where a ship the size of a small city had existed moments before. "Sir," Koss announced, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm detecting human communication signals from within the system." "Put it through," Zethkar ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, professional, and speaking in standard galactic common. "Civilian population located. Beginning extraction protocols. Estimate completion in 40 minutes. "Extraction protocols?" Dr. Sherrick echoed. "From where? How? The planet is surrounded by Ravager ships, and we still can't detect any human vessels in the system." The tactical display updated continuously as more bioships vanished from the Ravager formation. The aliens had begun firing in all directions now. Their organic weapons systems working at maximum capacity to engage enemies they could sense, but not target effectively. Several of their largest bioships had moved into the planet's atmosphere, seeking cover among the terrain features while continuing their desperate defensive fire. "Energy spike detected," Koss announced. "Massive gravitational distortion on the planet's surface." The display zoomed in to show the northern continent of Kepler 442b, where the civilian population was trapped. A circular area approximately 50 kilometers in diameter was beginning to glow with an intense white light. The light grew brighter and more defined, revealing itself to be some kind of energy field or barrier. "What are we looking at?" Zethkar asked. "I think," Dr. Sherrick said slowly, "we're watching a translocation field form around the civilian population." The implications struck the command crew simultaneously. The humans weren't just fighting an impossible battle against an enemy that had destroyed entire fleets. They were simultaneously evacuating 40,000 civilians using technology that shouldn't exist. "Sir," Lieutenant Morzak called out, "the largest Ravager bioship is moving toward the translocation field. It appears to be preparing for orbital bombardment of the civilian area." On the display, the massive bioship descended through the planet's atmosphere like a falling mountain. Its organic hull pulsed with malevolent energy as weapon systems the size of skyscrapers prepared to fire directly into the glowing field surrounding the civilian population. Then the bioship stopped completely. Suspended in the atmosphere approximately 10 kilometers above the surface, the massive vessel hung motionless as if held in place by invisible hands. Its weapon systems continued to charge, but the ship itself could not move forward, backward, up, or down. "Gravitational anchor," Dr. Sherrick breathed. "Something is holding that ship in place using gravitational manipulation. The energy requirements—" She paused, mandibles clicking rapidly as she performed calculations. "The energy requirements would exceed the total output of this system's star." The trapped bioship began firing wildly in all directions, its massive organic weapons sending destructive energy across the landscape. But it could not move from its position above the evacuation site. More importantly, its weapons could not penetrate the energy field surrounding the civilian population. "Extraction complete," came the calm human voice over the communication system. "Civilian population secured. Beginning asset elimination protocols." Asset elimination protocols. The phrase sent a chill through the command crew. Whatever the humans considered assets in this situation, they were about to be eliminated. What happened next defied every principle of physics and military tactics that the assembled species had developed over thousands of years of galactic civilization. Every remaining Ravager bioship in the system, 43 vessels ranging from frigate-sized scouts to moon-sized battleships, began to implode simultaneously. Not explode, implode. Each ship collapsed inward on itself with perfectly choreographed timing, as if space itself was contracting around them. The process was visible to the naked eye, the massive organic hulls crumpling like paper being crushed in an invisible fist. In less than 30 seconds, the entire Ravager invasion force had been compressed into tiny points of super-dense matter that winked out of existence like extinguished candles. The sudden silence was deafening. "Status report," Zethkar managed to say. "No remaining hostile contacts," Koss announced, his voice hollow with shock. "The system is clear." "Civilian casualties?" "Unknown. The translocation field has dissipated, but there's no trace of the civilian population on the planet's surface." "Sir," Captain Yela said quietly, "I'm detecting 3 human vessels at the edge of the system. They're requesting permission to approach for mission debriefing." The 3 Wolverine-class assault carriers had reappeared exactly where they had vanished 97 minutes earlier. Their energy signatures were normal, their configuration standard, and their approach vector perfectly routine. They might have been returning from a training exercise rather than an engagement that had defied the laws of physics. "Permission granted," Zethkar replied automatically, though his mind was still struggling to process what he had witnessed. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the communications screen, her expression composed but weary. "Commander Zethkar, mission complete. All 40,000 civilians have been successfully evacuated to safety. They're currently being processed at our medical station in the Centauri cluster. Admiral, Zethkar began, then stopped. Where did one begin with questions about what they had just witnessed? The Ravager fleet eliminated, Chen confirmed. The system is secure for Confederation vessels to enter and begin reconstruction efforts. How? The question escaped before Zethkar could stop it. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the same sad weight he had detected in their previous conversation. Commander, there are aspects of human military capability that we haven't shared with the Confederation. Not because we don't trust our allies, but because... She paused. Because once certain lines are crossed, they can't be uncrossed. What you witnessed today was necessary to save those civilian lives, but it's not something we undertake lightly. Admiral, my entire command crew just watched your forces eliminate an enemy fleet using what appears to be impossible technology. We have a right to understand. You have a right to many things, Chen interrupted gently. Understanding this may not be one of them, not because we don't want to share it, but because some knowledge carries obligations that can't be undone. Zethkar found himself thinking about her words for a long time after the transmission ended. The human fleet departed as quietly as it had arrived, leaving behind only questions and a system that was somehow cleaner than it had been before the Ravagers arrived. Even the orbital debris from previous battles had been cleared away, as if the humans had decided to perform a comprehensive housekeeping while they were eliminating impossible enemies using impossible methods. Dr. Sherricks approached him hours later, her analysis complete. Sir, I've reviewed all the sensor data from the engagement. I've identified over 300 separate violations of known physical laws. The energy requirements for what we witnessed should have required multiple stellar-class power sources. The technology involved suggests an understanding of space-time manipulation that surpasses our most advanced theoretical models by several orders of magnitude. Conclusions? Either the humans have developed technology so advanced that it appears magical to us, or... She paused, mandibles clicking uncertainly. Or the humans are something other than what they appear to be. Zethkar nodded slowly. Doctor, I want you to flag all Advanced Forces engagement data as classified above Confederation Council level. Access restricted to senior command staff only. Sir? Because, Zethkar said quietly, Admiral Chen was right about obligations. Some knowledge does carry responsibilities that can't be undone, and I'm beginning to suspect that our human allies are protecting us from more than just external threats. As he watched the stars through the observation deck, Zethkar found himself wondering what kind of species developed technology like that. More importantly, he wondered what kind of threats they had faced that required such capabilities. The answers, he suspected, were something the galaxy wasn't ready to hear. The Confederation Council Chamber had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. Representatives from 47 species sat in the curved amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, electromagnetic pulses, and harmonic vibrations that the universal translators struggled to process simultaneously. But despite the cacophony of languages, the mood in the chamber was unified. Everyone wanted answers. Commander Zethkar stood at the central podium, his 4 arms manipulating the holographic display that showed sensor recordings from the Kepler 442 engagement. 3 weeks had passed since the incident, and the data analysis had only deepened the mystery surrounding humanity's advanced forces. The energy output recorded during the engagement, he announced to the assembly, exceeded the total power generation capacity of our combined fleets by a factor of several thousand. The spatial manipulation technology demonstrated appears to operate on principles we don't recognize, using power sources we can't identify, achieving results we can't replicate. High Counselor Vexathara of the Thyaxian Collective leaned forward, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights into prismatic patterns. Commander Zethkar, are you suggesting that humanity possesses technology beyond our understanding? I'm suggesting, Zethkar replied carefully, that humanity possesses capabilities we haven't seen before. Whether that constitutes advanced technology or something else entirely is open to interpretation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Korth of the Kalari Federation raised a tentacle. If the humans have such capabilities, why haven't they shared them? The Confederation Charter requires all member species to contribute their technological advances to the collective defense. Perhaps, suggested Dr. Yenth of the Vorthon Science Institute, they have reasons for maintaining operational security. Many species have classified military technologies. Not like this, interrupted General Krex of the Titan Defense Corps. The massive insectoid's mandibles clicked aggressively. I've commanded fleets against the Ravagers. I've lost ships and crews to those bio-nightmares. If the humans possessed weapons capable of ending those threats with minimal effort, the moral obligation to share that technology is complicated, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Every being in the assembly turned to see Admiral Sarah Chen entering the chamber, accompanied by two figures that most of the representatives had never seen before. The first was an elderly human woman whose bearing suggested high military rank despite her simple civilian clothing. The second was a man whose eyes seemed to hold depths that made seasoned combat veterans uncomfortable. Admiral Chen, High Counselor Vexthara acknowledged. We were not expecting human representation at this closed session. You're discussing humanity, Chen replied simply. It seemed appropriate to participate. She moved to the podium, and Zethkar stepped aside with a respectful nod. Council members, I'd like you to meet Dr. Elizabeth Santos, Director of Human Strategic Planning, and Colonel Marcus Webb, Commanding Officer of Advanced Forces Operations. The woman stepped forward, her movements precise despite her apparent age. Honored counselors, I understand you have questions about recent military operations conducted by human forces. I'm here to provide context. What we want, General Krex stated bluntly, is an explanation for how 3 human ships eliminated a Ravager fleet that destroyed 47 Confederation vessels and cost us over 1 million casualties. We want to understand why the humans seem capable of impossible military achievements, while the rest of us struggle against threats that should be manageable with combined galactic technology. Dr. Santos nodded slowly. The answer to your question requires some historical context. May I? She gestured to the holographic display, which Chen manipulated to show a star map of human space. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, Dr. Santos began, we didn't encounter the Confederation. We encountered something else. The star map shifted, showing a dark region of space beyond human territory. We called them the Architects, an ancient species that had been seeding the galaxy with what they considered improvements for approximately 50 million years. The Ravagers were one of their creations, a biological weapon designed to harvest and process organic matter for their construction projects. Shocked silence filled the chamber. The Ravagers, the greatest threat the current galaxy had faced, were merely one weapon in an ancient arsenal. The Architects viewed younger species as raw materials, Dr. Santos continued. When humanity expanded into their territory, they treated us the same way they had treated thousands of previous civilizations. They expected us to be harvested efficiently and converted into useful components for their galactic engineering projects. Colonel Webb spoke for the first time, his voice carrying an odd mixture of pride and sadness. They didn't account for human stubbornness. The display shifted again, showing battle formations unlike anything the Confederation had ever seen. The war lasted 800 years, Dr. Santos explained. 800 years of total warfare against an enemy that possessed technology indistinguishable from magic. They could manipulate matter at the quantum level, bend space-time to their will, and create weapons that operated on principles our physics couldn't explain. "How did you survive?" whispered Ambassador Korth, her tentacles pale with shock. "We learned," Colonel Webb replied simply. "When your enemy can rewrite the laws of physics, you learn to rewrite them better. When they use the fundamental forces of the universe as weapons, you learn to use them as tools. When they treat reality as a suggestion, you learn to make your own suggestions more compelling." Dr. Santos manipulated the display to show a timeline. By year 300 of the war, we had developed what we called reality anchoring technology, the ability to impose our understanding of physics on local spacetime. By year 500, we had mastered dimensional manipulation. By year 700, we were fighting the architects on equal terms. "What happened to them?" High Counselor Vexathera asked. "We offered them a choice," Dr. Santos replied. "Leave the galaxy and never return or face total extinction. They chose to leave." The implications struck the assembly like a physical force. Humanity hadn't just survived against an impossible enemy. They had defeated beings who treated galaxies as construction sites. "The advanced forces," Colonel Webb continued, "are the descendants of the units that fought that war. We maintain the technology and training necessary to fight enemies that operate beyond conventional understanding of reality. Because the architects left, but they weren't the only ones out there." General Krex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You're saying there are other threats? Beyond what we've encountered?" "The universe is older and stranger than the current galactic civilization imagines," Dr. Santos confirmed. "The Confederation represents the most recent wave of intelligent life to achieve star travel. But you're not the first. The ruins on dead worlds, the ancient structures that predate any known civilization, the quantum anomalies that appear in deep space, they're all evidence of previous attempts at galactic civilization that encountered something they couldn't handle." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "The reason we haven't shared our advanced capabilities with the Confederation isn't because we don't trust you. It's because the knowledge itself is dangerous. The technology we used against the Ravagers is designed to fight enemies that can manipulate reality. In the wrong hands, or used carelessly, it could tear holes in space-time that would threaten entire star systems." "More importantly," Colonel Webb added, "the very existence of such capabilities tends to attract attention from things best left undisturbed. The galaxy is currently peaceful because the truly dangerous entities assume it contains nothing worth their interest." Dr. Sherricks, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. "You're protecting us, not just from external threats, but from knowledge that would make us targets." "And from ourselves," Dr. Santos confirmed. "We've seen what happens when developing civilizations gain access to reality manipulation technology too quickly. The temptation to use such power for short-term solutions often leads to long-term catastrophe." High Counselor Vexathera's crystalline form shifted to deeper hues. "The Advanced Forces designation. It's not just a military classification." "No," Colonel Webb replied. "It's a reminder. Advanced beyond current galactic civilization. Advanced beyond what most species can safely comprehend. Advanced to the point where we have responsibilities that go beyond normal military operations." Commander Zeth Carr found himself thinking about Admiral Chen's words from their first conversation. The sadness in her voice when discussing civilian casualties, the weight of bearing a heavy burden. "That's why you seem sad," he said suddenly. "When you deploy advanced forces, you're using weapons designed for a war most beings can't imagine, against enemies we can't comprehend. Every deployment is a reminder of what you've lost and what you're protecting us from losing." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. 800 years of warfare changes a species, Commander. We developed the capability to fight gods, but we lost something in the process. We learned to value peace more than most beings can understand, because we know exactly what the alternatives look like. So when you call them advanced forces, Ambassador Korth said quietly, you're not just describing their technology. We're describing their purpose, Dr. Santos confirmed. They advance into situations that normal forces can't handle, against enemies that normal weapons can't affect, using capabilities that normal civilizations shouldn't possess. They are advanced guards against threats that most species pray they'll never encounter. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled representatives. Humanity wasn't just another member species with unusual military capabilities. They were survivors of a conflict that had shaped them into something fundamentally different from the rest of galactic civilization. "What do you need from us?" High Counselor Vexathara finally asked. "Continue being yourselves," Admiral Chen replied. "Continue exploring, creating, building the kind of civilization worth protecting. Leave the impossible threats to us. If something appears that requires our intervention, we'll handle it quietly and efficiently." "And if someday we encounter something you can't handle?" General Krex asked. Colonel Webb and Dr. Santos exchanged a look that spoke of shared knowledge too heavy for words. "Then," Webb said finally, "we'll teach you what we learned in 800 years of impossible war. We'll share the burdens and the responsibilities and hope that together we can find solutions we couldn't reach alone. But until that day," Dr. Santos added, "the galaxy is safer with some knowledge remaining classified, some capabilities remaining hidden, and some wars remaining unspoken." Admiral Chen moved back to the podium. "The advanced forces will continue to operate as they have. When impossible threats emerge, we'll eliminate them. When civilian populations need evacuation from hopeless situations, we'll extract them. When reality itself needs defending, we'll be there." "And the rest of galactic civilization?" Commander Zethkar asked. "Gets to continue building the kind of future we fought 800 years to preserve," Chen replied. "Gets to explore the universe without needing to understand its darkest corners. Gets to remain innocent of knowledge that should never be necessary." As the assembly began to disperse, Zethkar approached the human delegation. "Admiral, one final question. When you offered to teach us if necessary, would we survive learning what you know?" Dr. Santos answered instead of Chen. "Commander, we survived learning it. That suggests it's possible. But we also paid a price that we hope no other species will ever need to pay." "What price?" Colonel Webb's expression grew distant. "The price of knowing that the universe is not a safe place, and that safety is only maintained through constant vigilance by those willing to make impossible sacrifices against impossible odds." As the humans departed, Commander Zethkar stood alone in the empty council chamber, contemplating the weight of protection that required such guardians. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, threats moved that required impossible weapons, wielded by people who had paid impossible prices to defend civilizations that would never know how close they came to extinction. The advanced forces weren't just humanity's military elite. They were sentries, standing guard against nightmares that most beings couldn't imagine, using capabilities that most species couldn't safely possess, bearing burdens that most civilizations couldn't survive. And somehow, that knowledge made the galaxy feel both more dangerous and more secure than it had before. In the distance, stars continued to shine peacefully, their light carrying no hint of the eternal vigilance that kept them burning safely in a universe older and stranger than most beings dared to contemplate. The galaxy slept soundly, protected by guardians who had forgotten how to sleep themselves.